It is 8 p.m. and here are the top stories we're following. Chilling details emerging about the moments leading up to the deadly mass shooting at a Texas elementary school.
He walked in unobstructed initially. No, there was not an officer readily available, armed. No.
And Colorado on high alert after gun scares and threats at several schools across the metro.
Where are they taking you? I saw people rushing in with guns like behind each other like SWAT.
I thank God that, everyone's okay.
Plus, Colorado has its first case of monkeypox.
And that rash is what sets it apart.
Experts say you should not panic, but you should be aware of what to look out for.
If they get a rash, we want them to seek medical attention.
40 minutes. That's how long police say the gunman was inside Robb Elementary School before he was shot and killed by responding officers.
And as we learn more about this tragedy, questions from grieving families about why police didn't stop the gunman sooner. Good evening, and thank you for watching Denver 7 News on Local 3. I'm Jacqueline Allen.
I'm Shannon Ogden. After 2 days of conflicting reports, we are getting a clearer picture of that tragic shooting in Uvalde, Texas, Tuesday.
Investigators now say a school district police officer was not inside the school when the shooting began. And contrary to their previous reports, the officer did not confront the gunman outside the school.
And further clarifying the timeline, Victor Escalon, the Texas Department of Public Safety's regional director for South Texas, said local officers did not make entry due to gunfire. Then they called for backup. U.S. Border Patrol tactical teams arrived nearly an hour later and engaged the shooter. Now, parents and witnesses say they were shocked police didn't enter the school earlier. Morgan Norwood is in Uvalde. She explores the still many questions that remain.
As families in the Uvalde community continue to grieve, new questions about the police response and how the suspect made it into the school unobstructed.
There was not an officer readily available, armed. No.
Law enforcement now going frame by frame of this video showing the suspect entering the school, piecing together the details of the response as part of their investigation. Multiple law enforcement sources telling ABC News the suspect had a total of 7 30-round magazines with him inside that classroom where those killings took place. One witness telling ABC's Matt Gutman what he saw as police arrived at the scene.
Some of them just stood there and said, well, why aren't they going in?
Authorities say the gunman was inside Robb Elementary for 40 minutes before he was killed by a Border Patrol SWAT team member. 19 children and 2 teachers were dead. One father says law enforcement didn't act quickly enough to save his 10-year-old daughter's life.
They said they rushed in and all that. We didn't see that.
Our officers, when they engaged, they were doing everything they could. There are broken windows where agents were trying and officers and law enforcement personnel were trying to evacuate some of the children. Our agents acted swiftly and very heroically.
Law enforcement say Salvador Ramos' shooting spree began with his own grandmother. He shot her in the face and then took off in her truck before crashing about a block and a half near the school. Then, dressed in tactical gear, police say he ran toward the school with a backpack and an AR-15 style rifle. With the motive still unclear, questions now about missed warning signs and the string of private messages between the gunman and a 15-year-old girl who calls herself Cece in Germany. ABC News reviewing that text thread he allegedly sent the teen he met online.
And ABC News talking with the teen in those Facebook messages, she says she didn't reply until she got word about what happened. She says she wonders if there was anything that she could do to change the shooter's mind. I'm Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Uvalde, Texas.
And now to the victims in the Texas school massacre. Mourners in Uvalde held vigils overnight for the 19 children and 2 teachers killed. 4th grade teacher Irma Garcia was an educator for 23 years. She was a mother and wife. Her husband Joe, of nearly 25 years, tragically dying of a heart attack today, according to their family. They leave behind 4 children. 6 people are still hospitalized, including 2 adults who are in serious condition. 1 young patient went into surgery on Wednesday and is now in stable condition. President Biden and the First Lady will travel to Uvalde to pay tribute to the victims on Sunday.
And in Denver, a frightening morning for students and teachers at Northfield High School. That school had to be put on lockdown after reports of a student with a gun. Turned out it was a paintball gun. But still, teachers and students there were understandably shaken up after what happened in Texas.
There's a lot of young people dying, and it's scary because it happens like every single day. And like to know that like my sister was inside of that school when that was going on, like that's even more scary to me.
Recently with like all the shootings and stuff, I feel like it was like safe to say I assume that there's a shooting going on or there's like a shooter, because with the amount of cops flying past me on this road and like all the cops already, and I saw people rushing in with guns like behind each other like SWAT.
Denver police say their priority was making sure parents knew their children were safe. Also, 2 teenagers were taken into custody and released to their parents.
About an hour after that incident was reported at Northfield High, a threat was made at Cherry Creek High School. Police say a person from out of state posted on social media that they wanted to, quote, shoot up the school. Cherry Creek High, Campus Middle School, and Bellevue Elementary were all put on a secure perimeter. At last check, police were still working to identify the person who made that threat. Another student has been disciplined at Boulder's Casey Middle School. Police say a 13-year-old male student brought an airsoft gun to campus today. Officers call that act, quote, absolutely unacceptable given the events of the past few days. That student was issued a ticket for theft and released to his parents. This comes just 2 days after a 14-year-old Casey Middle School student was arrested for making threats against the school. And today, Senate Republicans blocked a domestic terrorism bill that would have opened up debate on gun measures. Now, the bill passed by the House would have created new federal offices focused on domestic terrorism. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he is encouraging now his fellow GOP senators to begin discussions with Democrats to find some middle ground on gun legislation. Going further, as Senate Republicans push back on Democrats' calls for tighter gun legislation, some lawmakers are pointing to mental illness as the main issue. But psychiatrists say that argument is unfounded and even harmful. Dr. Adjoa Smalls-Manti, an emergency room psychiatrist, says that view is simplistic, it can stigmatize an entire community, and most individuals suffering mental illness do not engage in violent acts, including mass shootings.
It's important to understand that most shooters are not mentally ill to the extent where they've lost touch with reality and they do not understand what they're doing. They are very methodical in what they're doing.
She says wider access to guns in this country is likely a larger contributing factor to gun violence and mass shootings. In fact, as of 2018, it was estimated Americans owned 120 guns per 100 people, making up about 40% of the world's total gun ownership, according to the Small Arms Survey. That number is predicted to increase, along with the already surging gun violence. And right now on the DenverChannel.com, we have resources available if you're looking to help the victims of the Uvalde shooting and their families. You can also get all of our in-depth coverage on this story on the free Denver 7 Plus app, available right now to download on your streaming device. The state health department says the first presumptive case of monkeypox has been detected in Colorado. But top health experts are reassuring the public the risk of getting infected of this disease is low. And Denver 7's CB Cotton joins us now live to sort through fact versus fiction about this disease, making headlines all across the world. CB?
Jacqueline, state health officials say this man with a presumptive case of monkeypox recently traveled to Canada, where there's a current outbreak of the disease. I was also able to confirm today the man was treated at Denver Health, and while this news may sound alarming to so many people, right now health experts are saying this virus doesn't present the same kind of global threat as COVID-19.
The medical community is very familiar with monkeypox.
But most of the world isn't, causing worry and confusion for some, according to Dr. Reginald Washington, Chief Medical Officer of Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children.
With the air travel the way it is, people can be what we call vectors, meaning you can go to another country, another city. And since monkeypox is so contagious, I'm not at all surprised that in certain pockets of people who've been exposed, they're exposing other people.
On Thursday, CDPHE saying Colorado's first presumptive positive case is a young man who recently traveled to Canada.
Usually a person has common symptoms like fever, muscle aches, and they will get swollen lymph nodes somewhere on their body. And then about 4 to 7 days after exposure, they'll come down with a very specific rash, and that rash is what sets it apart from the other viral illnesses.
Washington says those who are infected must isolate, citing the highly contagious monkeypox rash.
When I say isolate, meaning no contact with anybody else, including bedclothes, sheets, and things like that, because that can pass it on if you're exposed to those materials.
This week, the World Health Organization released targeted health advice, saying some cases have been identified in communities of gay or bisexual men. The notice emphasized monkeypox is not limited to these communities, and anyone can be infected by someone who has the virus.
And it's probably not the sexual act that is doing that, it's the intimate skin-to-skin contact with someone who has lesions that is passing it along. Incidentally, there has been a woman diagnosed with this in another country, so it's not confined to just men.
Again, this is a presumptive case, and final confirmation will come from the CDC. There are 2 vaccines available to prevent monkeypox, and Colorado has requested them from the federal government. But health officials say they want to reassure everyone the risk to the public is low.
All right, thanks for the reassuring facts tonight, CB Cotton. And we have an in-depth write-up on monkeypox, including how it spreads, what you should watch out for, and what treatments are available. You can find that right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Beautiful readings in the 80s today, even warmer for tomorrow, and I'll let you know if it'll last all the way through Monday.
CDOT getting ready to reopen some high mountain passes just in time for Memorial Day weekend.
And one Denver community fighting to make their neighborhood greener.
And the whole point is for us to expand our open space.
Globeville residents try to turn a vacant lot into a park, but the city's standing in their way. You have questions, and tonight we're getting you answers.
Everyone deserves the right to clean air and water.